2020 for U.S. presidential election, a critical crossroads for America's future. As the 2020 for U.S. presidential election approaches, the stakes could not be higher. This election is shaping up to be one of the most consequential in modern American history, with far-reaching implications both domestically and globally. The two primary candidates likely to dominate the race are sitting President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump. While this might seem like a repeat of 2020, the political landscape has shifted significantly, and the key issues facing voters have evolved in critical ways. Beyond the personalities of the candidates, the election will be defined by the deep ideological divide between the two visions of America's future. Joe Biden, a push for continuity or declining momentum? President Joe Biden, elected in 2020 amidst a pandemic and economic crisis, has faced numerous challenges during his first term. His administration has been marked by efforts to address the aftershocks of COVID-19, inflation, and a rapidly changing geopolitical environment. Key legislative victories, including the Inflation Reduction Act and the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act have bolstered his record, highlighting investments in climate action, infrastructure, and economic recovery. However, Biden's leadership has not been without criticism. His age, he will be 81 during the 2020 for election, raises questions about his capacity to endure the rigors of another term. Even some within the Democratic Party quietly question whether a fresh phase would offer a better chance of maintaining power. Biden has consistently defended his record, framing his presidency as one of stability and incremental progress after the tumultuous Trump years, yet polls indicate tepid enthusiasm, particularly among younger voters. A second Biden term, while likely to continue the administration's legislative agenda, would face heightened scrutiny. Critics argue that his policies, especially on issues like inflation and immigration, have not gone far enough or delivered quick enough results. Whether the majority of Americans still believe in Biden's vision of steady governance remains to be seen. Donald Trump, a comeback or political overreach? On the other side of the aisle, Donald Trump remains the dominant figure in the Republican Party despite ongoing legal battles and controversies. His influence over the party has not waned, particularly among the party's base. Trump's 2020 for campaign will be marked by familiar themes: nationalism, strong borders, and anti-globalist rhetoric. He continues to claim that the 2020 election was stolen, a stance that resonates with his loyal supporters but alienates moderates and independents. The prospect of Trump returning to the White House is both thrilling and alarming depending on whom you ask. His critics, especially on the left, argue that his potential second term would further undermine democratic institutions, pointing to his role in the January 6 Capitol riot. On the right, Trump's defenders maintain that he represents a necessary corrective to what they see as democratic overreach on issues like economic regulation and cultural policies. Even with significant legal challenges, including potential criminal indictments related to his post-election conduct, Trump remains a formidable contender. His grip on Republican politics is strong, and his ability to mobilize voters with a message of populist grievance has proven resilient. However, there are questions about whether Trump can expand beyond his core base to attract the independent and suburban voters crucial to winning a general election. Alternative candidates and the potential for disruption. While Biden and Trump appear poised to be the central figures in the 2024 race, they are not the only players. In the Democratic Party, figures like California Governor Gavin Newsom and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg have garnered attention as potential successors to Biden should he choose not to run. Newsom, in particular, has built a national profile through his aggressive stance on climate change and COVID-19 policies. On the Republican side, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is seen as the most viable alternative to Trump. DeSantis has drawn national attention for his conservative policies on education, immigration, and his handling of the pandemic. While he shares many of Trump's political instincts, DeSantis represents a new generation of Republican leadership, potentially offering a post-Trump direction for the party. Former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley is another name floated as a potential challenger, though her path to the nomination appears more difficult. Should any of these alternative candidates gain traction, it could dramatically shift the dynamics of the race. A more centrist Democrat or Republican could appeal to voters fatigued by the polarizing figures of Biden and Trump, but whether such a candidate can overcome the entrenched influence of the two frontrunners remains uncertain. Key issues defining the 2024 election. Several critical issues will shape the 2024 election, each of which will offer voters a stark choice between the Democratic and Republican visions of governance. 1. Economy and inflation. Rising costs of living, particularly inflation in essentials such as fuel and food, remain at the forefront of voters' concerns. Biden has attempted to address these through infrastructure spending and regulatory reforms, while Republicans, led by Trump, argue that excessive government intervention has exacerbated the problem. 2. Immigration. Immigration policy will likely be a flashpoint. Trump's hardline stance on border security remains popular among conservatives, while Biden has faced criticism from both sides. Republicans accuse him of being too lenient, while progressives say his policies haven't done enough to reform the system. 3. Climate change and energy. Biden's presidency has been marked by aggressive action on climate change, including rejoining the Paris Agreement and making historic investments in renewable energy. Trump, however, continues to push for energy independence through traditional energy sources like coal and oil, framing Biden's climate agenda as harmful to American jobs and the economy. 4. Cultural and social issues. From abortion rights to LGBTQ protections, cultural issues will remain at the heart of the 2024 election. Trump's Supreme Court appointments helped overturn Roe v. Wade, galvanizing Democratic voters on reproductive rights. While Republicans continue to lean into issues of gender identity and parental rights in schools as key mobilizers for their base. Conclusion: an election with global ramifications. The 2024 U.S. presidential election represents more than just a choice between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. It is a referendum on two vastly different visions of America's future. For Biden, the election is about continuity, stability, and finishing the work he began in his first term. For Trump, it's a chance to restore a version of America he believes was derailed by the Biden administration. Beyond domestic concerns, the outcome of this election will have significant global implications, particularly in areas such as international alliances, trade policies, and the global climate agenda. As the world watches closely, Americans will face a monumental decision: to stay the course or embrace the disruptive potential of a Trump resurgence. With so much at stake, the 2024 election will not just define the next 4 years, but may well set the tone for America's role in the 21st century.